Well, g'day and welcome back. We're taking a look today at the Hollow Halls, Nomad Highlands. For those of you who haven't seen any of the series that I've done on these and are not aware of how I actually format these videos, what I do is I don't do any looting. I go through and do the looting before I come through here. So all this first chamber here has been done just before the first teleporter. What I do, however, go through and loot is the coffins. Because I figure that's what most people who actually do play through the game will actually do themselves. And just a bit of a rundown on what we're actually going to be doing in this particular run through. I'll be showing you where the location of all of the wooden chests are, the silver chests, running through any bonus loot locations. And as you would have seen from the thumbnail, I've found a way to cheese two of the bosses and also multiple spawn the bosses as well, which we'll cover a little bit later on. Just a little bit of a note on the looting here. You'll see, as I've just done there, there's potions and whatnot in a lot of the coffins, so it's really well worth your while actually stopping and looting them. And you'll get lots of things like ammunition and scrolls, as we just got there as well. So it's something you really should stop and do, is loot the coffins at least. As I mentioned earlier, for people who have followed the other couple of versions that I've done, the other couple of Hollow Halls, I've actually gone through and done all the looting for you, and what I'll do at the end is give you a complete rundown on what I've actually pulled out in terms of loot from all of them. As you would have seen just there as well, there are tons of places that you can mine ectoplasm from within each of the levels, and I've made sure that I put notes down the bottom of the screen. Some people may not actually be watching with volume, so I've decided to put notes there. So if you don't want to listen to me droning on forever. In this particular Nomad Highlands, there are tons and tons of silver chests and bonus loot locations throughout the entire level. Now, just in terms of the amount of time that you probably should allow to actually do this level, as you would have seen from the runtime here, I've taken an hour, and that's edited down. So if you're doing any looting at all, I'd probably allow at least an hour, as in if you're doing looting of coffins like I am. And if you were doing full looting, as in breaking all the vases and making sure you explored every section, I'd probably allow at least an hour and a half, probably 2 hours. Even if you were added in a couple of deaths even, I'd probably add, allow 3 hours really, to be honest. Now, as you'll see here on level 3, there's a couple of little cheese spots here to kill some of the enemies from. As I mentioned, I've edited out where I have killed them, but I've left a little bit in there just to sort of give you a bit of a visual cue on how you can do it. So you can see the main level where you come in, the main platform you come in on. You can let the enemies spawn on the wall there. And you can just cheese them from the center there. Just in front of us as well, in the main pillar just there to my right hand side, there's actually a silver chest up the top there, which we'll take a look at in a minute. And there's a silver chest just under the platform here where we are right now as well. One of the other things I'll mention just in terms of how to attack the level and the zone itself is make sure that you take in a lot of ammunition, and if you are doing an archer build like I am, bring in a lot more bow and arrows. You'll hear I mention later on that I actually ran out of ammunition. It was sort of partially by design that I did that, because I wanted to give myself a bit of a challenge and see how difficult it would be. Wasn't the greatest idea to do that because it was pretty damn hectic, but it was a lot of fun nevertheless, even though it was quite stressful to actually do it. So you'll see here we're just ticking off a couple of the Ectoplasm Shards. I call them Ectoplasm Shards. They're technically not that, but you know, I needed to name them something. So that's the name we gave them. And you'll see when you do a lot of the looting in all of the coffins that are in here, there's so much in terms of value, and you actually do get quite a lot of large bone arrows as well. You'll see in the top right hand corner of the screen there, I still haven't found all of the recipes in the hollow halls. So I'm not actually sure if I haven't found the recipe for bone arrows or not. I tend not to look these things up, and I'm sort of not hung up on, you know, how to get through any of the levels myself, so I sort of don't do any research on these levels before I go through them. I just sort of do a bit of exploration myself and see how I go with it. So just around the corner here, there was a few enemies that spawned on that platform there. They're not too hard to take care of. There's a lot of places you can cheese enemies from in this level, and we're just in the trapdoor room here with a wooden chest. The wooden chests tend to not have, you know, as you'd be aware if you play the game, they tend to not have great loot, but you know, they're at least worth taking a look at. Headed over to get the last shard there, and now we've got the barrier unlocked. And as I mentioned, there is another platform up the top here and another silver chest up here as well. Make sure you do that because that is where you'll unlock the ectoplasm block. And now we're ready to head on through the barrier and into the next section. Alright, so this next section here is a doozy. I have to do my best to remember it all and hope that I don't forget any of the hidden rooms. So there are a ton of coffins along the way here on the left and the right hand side. In this main room there's probably about 20 enemies that spawn. Not too bad to take care of, not too difficult. But as I mentioned throughout my entire series on this Hollow Halls, absolutely make sure you loot everything in here and always look through here, because if you hadn't have gone, for example, and taken a look at this and looted it, you would have missed a large silver chest. Which has an infernal wand in it. Pretty cool. There also are a whole heap of vases and urns and whatnot along the left and the right hand side at the beginning of this chamber. So now we head down to the bottom. There's also some urns and whatnot along here. Now this room here is a spider room. There is a spot here that you can sort of cheese the spiders from if you want to, but the main gist of what's going on here is that the spiders will continually respawn throughout the time you're in the room through these little egg things here. So basically the go here is to come and take all those little egg things out. Nice little flask there, that comes in handy. So as you're coming in, just to your left hand side in your room here, there's a silver chest. Got some Fowler gloves in it. The other side also has a little room, but there is nothing in it. Straight ahead into the next section here. Now you can go right or left here, it doesn't really matter. There are no hidden rooms or anything that are along the way. This section is actually pretty easy to get through in terms of the spike puzzle. It's not incredibly difficult or doesn't require incredibly great timing or anything. We're looking to eventually head down there, but there is a section just ahead here that we're going to go and take a look at. So you've got a large coffin here. Got a mana potion in it, and just to your left as you're in this room as well. I'll just activate a light. You'll see there's another hidden room here. There's a ton of vases and urns and whatnot in here as well. And also tables which you can break down. As I mentioned throughout this series, I'm going to be breaking down all of the tables and everything as I go along the way, so that I can give you an accurate representation of what's in everything. And as you'll see in this room here, there's a gold chest as well, and you get a flame shield from that, which is pretty handy. And we now have a full chest, so it's time for me to start deleting bones. So there's 150. Last time I deleted from Hollow Halls 2, I deleted I think 250 bones by the end of it. And as I mentioned in that series as well, in that video as well, if you want the bones, great place for you to be in here. If you don't want them, doesn't matter, because there's millions of them. Alright, so we're going to head straight ahead now. And there's a large chamber here. Just before you get too far in this chamber, you've got a couple of choices here. You can go left or right. There's two large furnaces there. To the left hand side here, not too much exciting except for a couple of large coffins. However, giant bone arrow in those as well, and there's a lot of urns and whatnot that are there as well in those urns. There's a lot of giant bone arrows, and as I mentioned earlier, giant bone arrows are absolutely clutch in this section. Now that I've made myself a new build with bone arrows, since they nerfed shroud arrows in the Hollow Halls now, it's no point at all having shroud arrows in any of these sections, because they just do no damage whatsoever now in the latest update. So the only thing to go with in the Hollow Halls is bone arrows. They are absolutely key in here. Alright, so into the next section here. So as you can see, there's a ton of coffins, and as I mentioned earlier, I don't I'm looting everything else along the way, but not looting coffins, just so you can sort of see what the main loot is. But you don't have to sit and watch me loot every single chest that's in the game. so we've now reached a new room in here, and again there's a ton of large chests in here. There will be one lot of enemies in here, but they're not too bad. There's one red scythe boss that's in here, and they all spawn over to the left over there, but they're not too bad, not too hard to take out. I must say that the enemies in this section have been nowhere near as difficult as the previous levels of this, which is quite interesting considering this is like, you know, the third level, I guess. So as you sort of make your way through here, you'll find there's a lot of large coffins in here, and they've got a few little helpful things in them. But one thing you will notice on the far left hand side as you come in, there's a secret room right here, which contains a silver chest. And I forgot to loot this one. Give me a second. And making your way through on the other side, and the little sort of hidden rooms here, there's nothing in there, and there's one giant coffin in here. And as you'll see, it's well worth your time just taking the extra few seconds to loot these little sections along the way, because you know, if especially if you're a like a wizard build, or if you're a an archer build like myself, it makes it so worth your while because you get a ton of giant bone arrows in this section. I've now got 112, and I've probably wasted or blown through probably about 50 so far, so definitely makes it worth your while. Alright, so anyway, so we came in just over there, and the next section we're headed off to now is just up here. So you'll see there's a launch point there. And in the center there is nothing of much importance. But up here, just in front of me, you'll find a gold chest and a ring of stamina. Alright. And just down in front of me here, you'll see we have a lore page for the Hollow, hidden crafting recipes. So we've now unlocked the crypt throne at the collector. So now if we head back out here into the main corridor again, the next section we're headed to now is downstairs. And you see here along the way, again, ton of large coffins along the way here. In terms of enemies here, there is a nice little cheese which is available here, which I found earlier. So just right there is a respawn. So if you run from here and fly, and quick little tip here as well, if you have an iron axe, you can actually chop respawns down with one hit. So there's a respawn that stays there. If you run in quickly, hit your iron axe on it, take it down with one hit, the enemies all stay locked within this bone wall here. So there's a couple of ones that throw freeze. I think there was about 3 of them that throw the freeze, and also the ones that spawn over here don't actually spawn as yet, and they won't chase you, so you can just sit here and take these guys out and just cheese them from far away, which is nice and easy to do. And then you can come down here, and if you like, you can jump up here again and fly over here, hit this with an axe, and then fly up here and just take these guys out from range if you're an archer, or if you wanted to do it with a wizard build. But again, the enemies in here are not too bad. Alright, and that takes us to the very next section. And you see the door opens here. And we now have a comfort level, so we are at the next section. Alright, so unfortunately I was going to record all of this chamber, but I had a bit of a problem with my recording and I accidentally triggered the boss here, so the hollow Cyclops has now been taken care of. What I'll do is I'll cover this main chamber from the entry on down. So a few key points in here. The wall there that goes around the outside, you can actually jump up and hide on there. So if you have double jump, you can jump up there. You will find a respawn point here, over there, and also behind, also in this chamber here. Also in this chamber you will find first of the ectoplasm fragments that we're going to grab. And behind this chamber here, in here, is also another respawn point, and this is going down towards the far end of the chamber. You'll see just from what I'm doing here that you can sort of nerf a little bit and jump up onto the sides of the chambers, and that'll come in handy in a minute. You'll see why. So the next little section here, and in the center there is where the hollow Cyclops was, by the way. Next little chamber here had nothing in it, but there is a ectoplasm fragment up the top that we've got to grab. And the way for us to do that is to grab onto this point here and just double jump our way over there. Making our way further along the chamber now. Next little section here, what we need to do is try and avoid the frozen boss there, get the ectoplasm fragment. Alright, so starting again from the front wall, if we head now down the left hand side, you'll see we have a chest there. Now the left hand side is a little bit interesting in that there are pieces of ectoplasm, but they are up high and they're quite interesting to get to. So the first one here, coming from the entry, you'll see that it's up higher. It appears at this stage that we don't have a way to get to it, but we'll work our way around that in just a moment. Next column down, facing towards the back wall, there is a secret corridor in here, and you'll see down the bottom we have a wooden chest which I've already opened. Your next one along contains a respawn point which I've already destroyed, and there is a fragment just here in the middle which I've already got. The best way to get into here is by destroying these things you'll see here, just the bone stacks. They just line the doors and then you can get in. Next column along again, we have another hidden room, and just see a set of stairs going up. Not a whole heck of a lot up here, just a couple of vases and whatnot to loot, which we've already done. Alright, now, the final one, there is another fragment which is right in the middle here, which we've already got. And that's it for the left hand side. So now for the center, you may have noticed up high that there are a lot of fragments and that there is another level up high. So what we need to do is get up there, and that is what the teleport points that we were looking at earlier are for. And the one that we're going to head to first is the one that's second from the front door here. So your main entry is just up there where you saw the boss just falling down. So we teleport up from here. Now we're going to make our way across here to where the flame puzzle is, and just make our way past it. Now I've already done all of the looting up here. There weren't a lot of enemies or anything up here. I will point out the places that had enemies. Just to the right of me, for example, there were a couple over there, but not too many. So what you've got for these teleport points upstairs is a way to get across. And there's a pattern with the way these teleport points go. They take you up just to my left there, up a little bit higher to the next little section. Alright, and there's another one done. Right, so the next little columns that you want to make your way to, if you are teleporting in, you just head off to the right hand side and head towards the braziers that are there and the pole that has the two lots of flame coming out of it. And we just run along with the flame puzzle here, making our way around it. Now this area here contains spiders, and if we're looking for a point of reference as well, there's your back wall there, and the front wall is above my head So we're on the left hand side of the room. This now is going to take us up to the section just above my head. And we're looking to get the next piece, which is down here. Alright, which we've now got. And if we want to head downstairs and do a quick check on where we're at with how many pieces. We can just head down to the center of the room at any time. So you'll see now that we have done 7 and we have 4 to go. And as you'll see from the second teleport location, takes us up to the middle, and there are 2 higher pieces from here which are a little bit tricky to get. Best way to get these is to just do them one at a time. So you'll see we still have 1 there to get, and we've landed just in the middle right near the teleport point again. And what we can do then is do a little jump a little bit lower, and that gets us done for that one. So now if we do a status check, just heading towards the door, we only have 2 to go. So from the first teleport point in the center of the room, which is right near the entry, as you'll see here, we mentioned before that there's a room that we're trying to get into that has a hidden piece, and that is that one down there. So it's a little difficult to make our way down there, but the best way to do it is to just jump off here and wingsuit in and time your jump perfectly. It's a little difficult, but it's the only way to do it. As you can see here, there's no launch points or no grapple points to make your way in. And there's another secret room as well. If you enter via the center teleporter and you have the entry on your right, so when you're looking from the entry to the far right, it's the second column on the right. So just here, and if I look over, you'll see the entry just over there. So if you enter and come up the stairs here to the very top, you'll see a silver chest with a Bone Scourge mace in it for me. So just a quick little check-in actually. Something I've just noticed with this video, I've actually been shooting about 20-25 minutes and then rendering, which takes about 3/4 of an hour to an hour, and just leaving the game going in the background. And what I've just noticed just then is that this guy actually respawned. So, and none of the other enemies spawn with him. I got a couple of little skull guys and a couple of little skull dogs, and that's about it. But what I managed to get is now 2 Cyclops heads and doubled up on giant bones. So, yeah, not sure if anybody was aware of that, but it's something I've just now found out. At any rate, back to where we were before. So what we're currently up to is we're going to get the last fragment, and you'll see there just in front of me is the door. So we're at the second teleport that goes up. The big entry to the hall's just in front of me. So what we're looking to do here is head outside and towards the so we've got the flame puzzle on our right, and we've got the burning urn just over to our right when we enter as well. That's what we're trying to do now, and you'll see the piece just there. Is just get over to this last little teleport point just over here, and that's going to teleport us up to just above my head there to my left, and there we go, barrier unlocked. Alright, so now that we've got the barrier unlocked, we're going to head off into the next section. So what you have in here is another save point, and I've already looted the cabin in here, and as with all of the save points, you have a equipment repair bench as well. Alright, so now we've cleared out the next section here. It's quite a large section, this one. Just the usual with a whole host of coffins along the edges. Now you'll come up to the end here, there'll be a huge amount of enemies in here. There's a bunch of enemies that spawn from right over here. And there is nothing to report up this end in terms of any loot or anything like that, or hidden rooms. Now this next section here is quite intense, to be honest. So strap yourself in, and I hope you've got a lot of ammo. So as I mentioned, we've already gone through and cleared everything out in here. What we're going to take a look at first up is just a couple of chest locations. So upstairs here we've got a large silver coffin. Some boots in it. And just down the bottom here. Got a little wood chest. Excuse me looting, because I haven't gone through this particular section as yet. Now up here in this room you'll have a heap of vases and urns to loot, and you'll also have a ton of skeleton enemies in here as well, and similar in here you've got a ton of vases and urns to loot. What will happen though, as soon as you come up here you'll be set upon instantly, so you've got to be quite careful with how you actually approach the section. There's also quite a few little urns and vases and whatnot in here as well, and a couple of different large coffins to loot as well. And just down here, which is where we'll be going eventually, that's the entry to the main cavern. There are a ton of enemies in there, but we'll deal with them in just a moment. You've also got a nice little room in here which has a lot of urns and vases and whatnot in there as well. But what we're going to head off and do now is just check out another little section that's quite close by to here. There's probably about a dozen skeletons in here as well. And just as you go around the corner here, there'll also be a whole host in here as well. And this is another little vase area where you can loot as well. And just over here, just in front of me, we have a chest over there which I've already looted, which contained a weapon. I think it was the snake spine wand. Right, so now our next mission is to head on back into the main section. And as I mentioned, this is where it gets quite hairy, and it's only the beginning. Now I've already cleared out just this beginning part here to the next save point, so there won't be any enemies here, but what will happen is you'll get a lot of bone dogs in here. The first lot will spawn when you come through this doorway here, and the next lot, once you go around the corner, there'll be another lot that spawns, and then once you get up here to the next little save point, just before the door to the next little save point, another lot will spawn. So you'll end up with 3 or 4 separate red side mini bosses that you'll have to take out, as well as loads and loads of bone dogs, which is quite a pain. And we haven't even got to the fun part yet. Now the next section here, I've already looked it up, and I don't like my chances on getting through without dying at least a couple of times, to be honest. I'll have to see how we go. The other thing as well is that I've almost run out of arrows. So we'll have to see how that goes as well. I'm not sure how I'm actually going to kill all of the other enemies that are in the next main cavern here. So just looking at what I've got in terms of arrows, I've only got 39 giant bone arrows left, and a couple of fossilized bone arrows, and that's about it really. A few bronzies, and that's it. I've not got a lot left in the coffers, to be honest. So I'm not really liking our chances, but we'll give it a shot. And even if I have to die a couple of times, that's fine. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'll loot this room and I'll head on into the main cavern. And I'll try and clear out in there as much as I possibly can before I get back to you. So this is interesting. I just went in to try and complete, say, half the enemies in the room. And I came across something extremely interesting, which I'll have to show you. It might be something you might want to take into consideration when you're doing this level yourself. So there's a couple of little vases that are in this section here. There's also a chest in that main column that's above my head there that we'll get to in a moment. It's in a hidden room. And as you'll see, we've got 2 markers to get ticked off. So the interesting thing that I found out while I was messing around in here just a moment ago, there's 2 things. Firstly, we'll just go to this little hidden chest that's over here, which I found while I was messing around before. This one's a little bit tricky. So there's a hidden room here. Just light things up. And you'll see there's a round chest there. And similar to the other rooms, we have a set of stairs. So just through the door here, you'll see a giant silver coffin. There's also some experience scrolls there. And I've got the knight trousers there, which is interesting. I haven't seen them before. They're new. Arrows, just what I need. Fantastic. And these 2 coffins here are not lootable. Right, so we'll just head back upstairs now. Now the interesting thing I wanted to show you, it was to do with the fact that I have shroud arrows. So the main combat area is down here. So what I did before was just came in to just check the area out and see what was on offer here. And there were a whole heap of enemies that were behind the wall here, and they all decided that they wanted to trigger to this corner here. So all I did was just load it up with shroud arrows and just took them all out. Which is quite interesting. You can't actually unlock this gate. I believe what's supposed to happen, I need to be careful of that ice guy, is that when you trigger this main trigger here for the boss, that they're supposed to appear there. So that's quite interesting. So what we're going to do now is we'll just load up. Make sure I've got everything equipped. Before we trigger this main area. So I believe what's supposed to happen, yeah, as I thought. So these guys were supposed to just unleash when the gate opened, but because I was able to cheese them from behind the gate, I'm going to have a heck of a lot of an easier time now. Which is great. I didn't even really need to worry about the freeze there, to be honest. So we'll take an ice protection. That's what I should be able to do now. Just loot everything and have a happy old time. So I think what I'd like to try and attempt is to keep the fight along the edge here so I can avoid the spikes where possible. This would have been a nightmare with oh boy, only just made that. Boy oh boy. Well, I've burnt through all my arrows. And glitched everything out a little bit, but it's alright. This would have been a heck of a lot more difficult with the extra 60 enemies there, I've got to tell you. So glad that I did it that way. The only thing that I neglected to do is check on this side. And that's where those extra enemies came from. So if I had have actually cheesed all of the enemies that were on this side as well, I would have had no extra enemies to deal with, which would have been even better. Alright, so that is it for boss number 1. Now we just have the other side. Alright, so finally we have advanced on to the final boss. However, we have a bit of a extremely good news, extremely bad news scenario. The extremely bad news is that I've used everything except 2 shroud arrows, and I've only got 14 giant bone arrows that I just happened to find just a moment ago down the bottom here around the pillars that I was working on. The very good news part of the scenario was that I was able to cheese the enemies in here again, and this time I actually found a better way of doing it. I used the Necromancer's Skull Summoning Vessel and just threw it here in the corner, and just sat, because I had no ammunition left, I just sat back here with the wand and just cheesed them from behind the fence. Eventually the fence did break, but 2 things to note. On this pile here, there's a respawn. The enemies that you're dealing with mainly are just skulls from the respawn, so that's not really the problem. What the real problem here was the, and it always is, it's the red scythe wielding bosses, and there was 2 or 3 in each of these 2 rooms. Well, there's actually 3 rooms, to be honest. There was, I think, 2, possibly 3, but I had them against the fence and I was just kind of spamming them. And you end up doing other damage on other enemies while you're here. So if I were to do this entire section again, there's a couple of things I'd do very differently. I'd bring in probably the 250 shroud arrows that I usually bring in, specifically just for this part here. And I'd just sit and shroud arrow blast and kill all of these enemies. Because what happens is when you press this button here to summon the big boss, you end up with the big boss plus every single other enemy that's within the area. And as you'll see, there's another area here as well, and this is double the size of the other one. So you end up with probably 60, maybe 70 different enemies to kill which would be an absolute nightmare. So thank God I found a way to cheese it, which is very, very lucky. So all I've got to do now is just hope that... Oh, God, I accidentally just used a shroud arrow. So all I've got to do now is just hope that I can take down the boss with the one shroud arrow that I have. Right. Well, that's weird. Why have I still got one marker on the door? That is very bizarre. So I did have one marker that was kind of hanging over this guy. Ah! He's not showing as dead. Well, that's weird. Oh, what the heck? So, to be honest, I'm not sure whether what's happened here is a glitch or whether it's meant to be the case. What may have actually happened is that inadvertent respawn that I found earlier as I was editing and waiting for video files to render. So that's probably what's happened, but I'm not sure. Thank God for that. That was absolutely horrendous. Alright, well, mistakes were made, massive mistakes were made. I did not bring in enough ammunition at all. That was, at the end, absolutely infuriating, but it would have been a lot better if I actually had some ammo. Alright, well, we finally made it through to the final barrier. Our weapons are depleted. We've got 0 ammunition, but we made it. And it took a hell of a long time. A hell of a long time. And a melee weapon, which, to be honest, is what I probably should have put together for a build to come into here. Next time I will definitely put together a melee build to come into the hollow halls. The other problem that I had was I didn't have giant bone arrows, and you'll see also on the top right hand side of my screen I've still got, you probably would have seen it all along, as I've still got find all crafting recipes in hollow halls. So I'd say that I missed the giant bone arrows recipe at some stage because I wasn't able to craft it. I went back and tried to craft it and could not craft it. So I must have missed it at some stage. So I'm going to have to go back into the hollow halls again, one of the first 2, and see what I can find in there. So just a quick little check-in on what we've ended up in terms of loot after our completed journey. We've pulled out almost 300 ectoplasm shards, so a lot. Only 1 ectoplasm fragment. That's because I didn't do any mining, but as I said before, I don't really need it and I'm not really that phased on it. Got a couple of snake spine wands, but as I also mentioned throughout the mission, that we've done probably about 10 to 12 recycles of weapons, so there's a hell of a lot of weapons you get out of this level, just loads. We've got loads and loads of scrolls, which are great if you're especially looking for experience, because there's 3 of those there, which is quite helpful. Also, in terms of a flame shield, there is a legendary which I found. I mean, they will differ, but you know, the ability to find a legendary shield in this mission for somebody who's a lower level will be extremely helpful, as will higher level staff charges like Bone Channel 2, Acid Bite, Ice Bolt, etc. Those will all be very helpful. And as we covered earlier as well, the Ectoplasm block is an extremely helpful and new addition to the game. Now, as we mentioned earlier as well, with the cheese of the Hollow Cyclops, I managed to get an extra Hollow Cyclops head. And if I had any ammunition left, I could have actually stayed in the Hollow Halls and killed the other Hollow Cyclops that had respawned down there. But as I also mentioned, because of that little glitch that I've found, you can actually just stay in there forever if you want and just keep killing them. Especially if you're trying to find, bronze Hollow Cyclops heads to craft later on. That will be extremely helpful, as will the giant bones for making ammunition as well. Alright, well, that's just about it. There were a heck of a lot of spells and whatnot that we also found, potions and whatnot, but I've used quite a few of them because it was a really, really hard zone to get through, as you would have seen over the past just over an hour. I do believe it was really, really well worthwhile looting. You know, there's a ton of marble that we got from here, a ton of scrolls, and a ton of weapons as well. So I think it was well worth our time taking the extra time to go through the area and loot it. Alright, well, that's going to wrap it up for us here at the Hollow Halls. Don't forget to leave some comments down below if the video was helpful for you. And we'll see you next time on Glitch Gaming.